Good morning and happy Father's Day to everyone. I'm so delighted to have my father joining me this morning and really sharing with us his story and about his life. And so let me welcome Dr. James H. Chester.
Thank
Happy
you.
Father's Day.
Thank you, son.
I want to jump right in our conversation today, and it's been 7 years since your dad has passed. Tell me about your dad.
Wow, that's a good opportunity to talk about my dad. My dad was a real easygoing person. He was fun-loving, loved to tell jokes. He loved to tell jokes. Some try to claim I got that from him. I don't know about that, but he loved to tell jokes. He had a lot of them. And everywhere he went, we have the family reunion and stuff. He was always the life of the party. He was always an easygoing person. He was never over strict. He just loved life, worked hard, worked 2 jobs all the time. When my dad used to come home, it was 3 of us. We had no sisters. And we could hear the car coming up and we would all sing a song. Here come my daddy, my daddy, my daddy. Every evening he would come home. And so all of us enjoyed it. My father, one of the unique things about him, he and I was in the 5th grade at the same time. And some people find that perplexing, say, how can you and your father both be in the 5th grade? Matter of fact, I had the same teacher, Miss Bush. She was tougher on me than she was on him. Dad he didn't finish school and he wanted to learn how to read the Bible. And so he went back to night school to learn how to read so he could read the Bible. And so we were in the 5th grade at the same time. I went on, he went to, I think, the beginning of the 7th grade where he would take more than one class, but he learned how to read the Bible. One of the things I did for him, got him a New Living Translation. He loved to read that Bible. He would read it night after night after night. He loved to fish, always try to do things himself. When we learned so much from him, he would try to work on the car. Well, he used to work on the car and build a house, that type of thing. And he was just a fun-loving person.
Well, what is one of your, and I know you all have many memories, but what would be one of your most memorable times with your dad?
It would be kind of tough. I think memorable time would probably, so I would be with my dad a lot of times. I spent a lot of time with my dad, probably more than my brothers. My dad would be getting dressed in the bathroom, getting ready to go someplace, and I would sneak out and get in the car and wait till he come out and get in the car. And he'd drive off and I'd jump out the back seat. He knew all the while I was there, but I knew if I didn't get in the car, my mom was going to tell me I couldn't go. So I would be hiding out in the car. And so one of the memorable times for me was when my dad joined the church and he got baptized. I was really the only one that was there, from the family. They were baptizing in the river those days and in the evening time. So he and I went over there and we had a pastor by the name of Reverend Bird. Reverend Bird was a little short, stocky guy, and Dad was probably about 270, 280 in those days. And they were in the river, and they leaned him back to the baptizer, and he was so large that they didn't hit the water right. And when they hit the water, he didn't go down, and he started floating out because the tide was going out. And Reverend Bird jumped up on his stomach and said, y'all niggas stop it. so I'll never forget that. I mean, it's strange how those things, that part of the Fort Pierce probably is not even configured that way, but I can still see it in my mind's eye. And that was some of the most memories. Probably some of the other memories, one other memory I'll talk about, it was actually 2, and I had a struggle trying to figure out which one. One was about Dead Man Curve, and the other one about the truck fire. So probably, the truck fire was probably more memorable than any other. We had this truck, and one of my friends ran out of gas, so I got the truck because it was blocking my car, and I went to get him the gas, and we were at this new area. They were just building new houses. I don't know what they were doing out there. And he ran out of gas, and I took the gas, and I went to start the truck, and it backfired. It didn't have air cleaner on it. And so I opened the hood, and we had all this oil on it. And the truck was on fire, so we just took sand, which is the worst thing to do, put the fire out. So they pushed me on home, pushed it outside the road. And so when I came in, I said, "Hey, Dad, your truck caught on fire tonight." He said, "Oh, okay." I went on to bed. And so the next morning, he getting ready to go to work, I hear him start, and I said, "Oh, boy." He went, young, and it go, boom. And I'm in the bed pulling my cover over here. He come back in, he said, "You told me the truck got caught on fire. You didn't tell me you burned it up." So me and my friends, we took it the next day, and we rebuilt the engine and everything. We kept the truck another 10 or so years. But it was those type of memories that he wasn't that type of person that was just angry. But that was some of the funny memories. And Dead Man Curve, I'll tell you about that. They finally took it out of Fort Pierce, and the same truck, me and my buddies was going to work. We used to work at the airport. And a curve, it's got an S-curve, and if you don't go in it right, it'll walk up. That's how people get killed. And you got to take them low. And I took the first one low, and when I went into the second one, who do I meet coming back to town? My dad. He was supposed to be in Melbourne. He was there in Fort Pierce. And I just blanked for a second. That truck started coming across the line. He driving a dump truck, him and my oldest brother. And so I managed to get by, and we went on to work and stuff. That night I came in. He said, "Didn't think you were going to see me today, huh?" I said, "Where?" "You didn't see me."
First time I heard that story was actually him telling me.
Yeah, he probably remembered it too.
Oh yeah, no, he could tell that story well. So it's been 7 years.
Yeah,
and
7 years.
I know that because Granddad passed the day after me and Brittany got married that July.
Yeah.
So tell me, how are you doing with grief? We know that it's always a process, never ending.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah. It's working through it. It's those good and the bad times. You know, speaking of the wedding, you know, we tried to stay there as long as possible because I was doing the wedding, and we knew he was on his way down, and he had aspirated and stayed as long as I could, but I had to drive the distance to Huntsville, about 12, 13 hours, and so we made our way up. And I just believe in his mind, he was just waiting, you know, after the wedding. He just went out, and we turned around and came back. Woulda, could have been there. One of the things, my dad, he really loved his dad. My dad would always, he was with 13 children, but he would always take the best, most care of my dad, my granddad, which my granddad always would be with him. He was the one who went to Georgia to move my granddad down to Florida. When my granddad had to go anywhere, my dad was always there, and he was there at the end of my dad's life. Wished I could have been there, but I know he understands. But grief is something, you know, I knew he was at a better place. I knew he loved the Lord. You knew he loved to sing because he taught you about singing. And so I'm working through it. You know, the unique thing now, though, sometimes I get up in the morning, I go in the bathroom and get in ready and look in the mirror, and I almost startle and say, "It's my dad in the mirror." Then I realize it's me. So it's so much that can bring your thoughts back. And I see the resemblance. I see the position in life. See, you know, what he obviously dealt with as a father, as I think about my son and those things. So those are the good moments, and I think I have more good memories, and it always think so much what he taught me without saying, "Here's a formal school that I'm going to take you." Yeah, you know, and I think about it on him with my father, a square of shingles probably weigh 70 pounds or so, and I see him walk up a ladder with it on his shoulder. And then to see him at the end of life, you could almost pick him up. But it's a reminder where we all going. Yeah.
So, not only are you a son, you're a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. So, how many children do you have?
I got 4 children.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
I got 9 grandchildren.
And how many great-grandchildren?
I got 4 great-grandchildren.
All right. So that's legacy.
Yeah, I guess it is.
That's legacy there. Tell me about, there was a season in your life where you was a single father.
Yes.
And you fathered 2, my brother and sister. And so
Yeah.
tell us about that season and what it's like being a single dad.
Wow, that's it's different. One thing I can say about being single as a parent, it was never designed by God to be single. And I hope people understand that and try to do what they can. Sometimes things just won't work out. But it was a challenging time, but God was gracious during that time, raising 2 children, single, especially a girl. The toughest part sometimes was dealing with my Christian brothers and sisters who, for some reason, and I understand that they just don't think a man should raise his daughter, but somebody got to raise them. You know, and so it was a unique time. The daycare was almost directly in front of the house, and I worked for the government at that time, and we had a thing called flex time. So I'd have to be to work until 9 o'clock, so I could get up, get the children dressed, take Charles across the street to the daycare, and take Nicole to where the Christian school Greater Bethel's at, and then still be home in time enough, pick them up for the daycare close, cook while they're taking their baths and doing their things, and just get into a routine. And it's one of those things you determine you're going to do, because children need parents. They need somebody who's going to care for them. And so that was some of the unique times. Good time to be along with the Lord, spend a lot of time with the Lord. And so I'm glad I did it. Yeah, glad I did it.
If you could share just one thing to single parents out there, what would be a word of encouragement or insight that you would give?
Well, to a single parent, you got to make up your mind it needs to be done. And that you can do it, but you can't do it alone. You got to have the Lord to do it, because it's so easy to get distracted. I wouldn't say it's any worse now in a sense than it was then, because we always tend to look at different eras as different challenges, but the challenge is still the same. That you're trying to be mother and you're trying to be father, and that's a tough job, but you can do it. Got to make up your mind. You're going to protect your children. You're going to raise them the best that you can in the situation you can, and God will be with you. Yeah, God will be with you.
So, as a father, 4 children, what would be your biggest challenge as a father?
Well, I guess in the past or the future, biggest challenge as a father is trying to make sure that your children mature, stay on track, and you're trying to keep up with them. So you got 4 children. I got 2 boys, 2 girls, and they're all unique in difference. I think the worry for the girls or the concern for the girls is different from the boys. Now in this day and age, things have changed. I think as a father, you always, as a black father, only a black father could understand that it's always on his mind 24/7 about his son in the era that we're living in. You don't want to hear the news that the police have stopped him and their life is gone. It's always in your mind. Not only that, being fair, you wonder, hope they're in the right part of the city, that they don't even get, black on black crime. So that's a concern that, for me, as a father, never leaves. It's almost subconscious. It's not something that'll keep you awake, but it's something that you almost expect. And so that's probably one of the biggest challenges, and trying to provide for them.
Yeah, I know you like cars and always have driven, well. And I can just think about being young. You always let me drive whatever I wanted to drive. But I do remember those times, especially going out of town, and I didn't really understand it then. I understand it now. Just the concern with the black boy driving a luxury car. You had a Lexus then, so for a 17-year-old to get caught in a LS and what that would mean for the police. Those are things that just kind of now on my mind, especially with all that has happened.
Yeah, it passes on, and sometimes other people haven't dealt with that. Not saying they are not dealing with something, but whatever they're dealing with, I would want to respect that. I would want them to respect whatever I'm dealing with. It was different in my day because it was in the late 60s, I believe, because mainly segregated towns was patrolled by black policemen. White policemen would come from time to time, and they could come. It was just in reverse. You couldn't go into the white towns. So police knew everybody. The police knew everybody. Cousin and I, we had 2 black 57 Chevrolets. We used to work for the airport, and we were coming home from work one day, and they passed this law. It's like $1,000 for drag racing. We really wasn't drag racing. We would get off from work, and so he would lock up the building. So I went on his hood and disconnected something on his car, and so he coming back, and he mashed on his car. He knew something ain't right on it, but he don't know what it is. And so we coming on the time they just put this 4-lane road in. So we riding side by side, just looking at each other. And when we looked, that was the sheriff, and he didn't have the best infinitive for us. And man, he turned on the lights, and we both went one different ways. But he knew us. Right. And so he went down. We had a garage there, and he went down to the garage, and one of the guys there at the front was pumping gas, and so he said, "You seen those 2 boys?" And the guy looked around, and he pointed, and so Ronnie had put his car in the garage. He pointed into the garage to tell him where the car was. So he told us we had until midnight to turn ourselves in. Wow. Yeah, but midnight never came. We never did, because that must have been 2 other guys he seen. Could have been us.
So you still want it?
Still want it.
Oh, you learn something new every day. What about, as you think about, your role as father, what are some of the things that you desire for your children?
Number one thing I desire for my children and work hard for them to do better than I've done. I've done better than my father. I wasn't proud about it, in the wrong way. Wasn't one of those type things. He was still my father. I loved him. And I know he wanted me to do better than him. And that's why he made so many sacrifices. And I made sacrifice following him, so my children would do better. I would really be disappointed if they did less. And so I want the best for them. I work for the best for them when they were growing up. Still have the best of them at heart now. I still help my children. We all need help at some point in time, and sometime in life you're better able to help than other times.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I have definitely seen and benefited from. You've made that clear. So what was the hardest thing you had to do as a father?
That's probably the hardest question I had to answer. I think through it, and perhaps the reflection I give on it, probably at one time I had to release my 2 children. I'd been raising them, and the judge decided that he wanted to send my children north and do a home study. Even though I had the children, I was raising them. He wanted to do a home study, and I think that was a hard time, releasing them to do it. But I know I had to do it because it was court ordered, and had to go through the process. So I think that was probably one of the hardest times for me, not knowing, not being there. I'm not really a helicopter parent, probably just a Cessna. The Cessna do move, the helicopter hobo. But I think that was some of the hard time. When it comes to hard times, I guess as a father, as an individual, all of them are probably equal because I've made up in my mind whatever life deals, I'm going to deal with it. Can't change it. Got to work with it. And so it's really no hard times. No harder than that.
What would be your biggest regret?
Well, it won't take much to figure that out. My biggest regret was not able to spend the time with my children that I would have desired. But when I was coming along, just like my father, you just had to work to be able to provide for them, to do the things. Then, you can't do things over. At one time, I not only worked, I attended seminary, and I pastored, all at one time. And so that took a lot of time away from the children. But the hope is, and probably would have already happened if this coronavirus hadn't came back, we're you know as well as I am that we're planning on doing a family vacation together sometime, and maybe we can recoup some of that time. But that's been the hardest time. And here again, it's different because sometimes our wages are not like other people's wages. And that's what sometimes the people don't understand. If you got to work two jobs and hear a person working one job making the same amount of money, they have a lot more time than you do. Because you got to, and not that you're trying to keep up with them, but if it take that much to live, you got to spend the time somewhere. So, but that's probably been the number one regret, is not having the time to spend with them.
So, and these will be the final two. You have a lot of children, a lot of people outside of your biological children that call you dad.
Yeah.
And tell me about your role in their lives.
One of the things I think I learned from my father is to treat everybody right. It's one thing I can say about him. He was never responsible for the way people treated him. He always treated people right. Probably one of his favorite songs was, "I'm going to treat everybody right." And so having said that, I look on people with the eye of compassion. When I see anybody, especially if they're not doing well, I think about it. That could be me, could be my son, could be my daughter. And that's why I try to help people. Because it could be. And the only difference is the grace of God. If it wasn't for the grace of God, I look at people, they may have not had even what I've had. There's other people who had better advantage, but that's what God has appointed for us. And any time that you can help a person, you need to help them. God requires that of us. And so I don't laugh at people. They may have raggedy shoes on and stuff, but I think about, could have been me. Maybe my son, maybe my daughter. And so it is so many people, and I think God is wise enough that sometimes my memories just begin to erode. There's so many people, I'm not bragging, so many people I've helped in this life that I could never, ever record it. I see people all the time, "Hey, Pastor, you remember you did this for me?" Man, it's been so long ago, I don't remember. But it was just my nature to help people, and that's why a lot of them look. I have a special desire to help young ministers. I don't want them to deal with what I've dealt with. And a lot of them don't have to, but anything that I've learned, I'm open for it. And that's why I want to help people. I want to help the young ministers. I help people. One of our little daughters, I thought about it yesterday. Mom came home and first thing she hollered, "Hey, Isis." And I thought about Janiyah. Janiyah stayed with us for a while, trying to transition. I thought about her. We've helped so many people, and that's why they look as a dad, mom figure.
Yeah, and even when I asked that question, I wasn't even thinking about the children that you all actually have fostered. Through the foster care system.
Yeah, through foster care.
And that's another element about the people that actually live, with you, and that's another element. What about those outside? You had your biological dad. Who would be another father figure for you?
I would probably say Elder Robert Henley probably would be the other father figure. And the reason is I spent so much time with Elder Henley. I used to do his Bible studies when he couldn't make it from Fort Pierce. He used to do it driving. We traveled together, Hampton. He was the vice moderator, so he was responsible for going to these churches. I used to always drive him to wherever he needed to be, even when he was moderator with the school and stuff. So I spent a lot of time, not only in those contexts, just sometimes kidding around, just joking around. And people may not know that type of thing, but we had a lot of fun. Spent a lot of time with him, and he would tell me different things. Bish this and Bish that, and we just have a lot of fun. I was his driver. He would always tease me. He always kept this large thing of cologne in his car, and I'm not really a cologne person, so he said, Bish, you need some of this, and he sprayed them. He said, and they gonna say nothing. So I spent a lot of time with him, business-wise, properties, and everything else. So I would say, if I had to have another, not biological, would be him.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I think it is good for people to hear.
Well, I appreciate this. It's a good opportunity. I probably, the things that I reflected on are things that were in me that from time to time something will cause me to think on it. But to think on them all at once, it's a good thing, because like I said, it's been 7 years since Dad and Mom, and so it was almost, when I got out of church every Sunday, the car just knew it was going to Fort Pierce.
Yeah.
And after they expired, you rush out of church and say, hey, I ain't got to go up there anymore. But every Sunday I would just head up there, check out them, would try to take care of them, do the cleaning and everything that they needed. And but yeah, it's been 7 years, and so I appreciate you, thinking about this interview. It caused me to think, and sometimes those things do good. Sometimes you just need to relook at what you've had and inspire you to go a little bit further.
Well, I know you're entering another season. You have just received word that there was cancer found in your prostate, and as we prepare for treatments, have you rethought your role as while everything is looking good? I mean, we received a good report from the doctor.
Yeah.
But cancer period, has that made you rethink your role as father, as pastor?
Yeah, I think you can't help but rethink those things. Now, what happened, and I encourage men to do an annual physical. Just during the annual physical, doctor noticed the PSA had went up, knew about it in February, but things shut down. So it really wasn't a whole lot we could do. And once things opened back up, sent and got a MRI, and they saw a spot. I went and did a biopsy to verify the spots, and they had cancer in them. And so he did talk to me, and he said, it do have some spots. It is a non-aggressive type. He said, if it's a type that you have to have, that's the type to have. I really wanted to tell him I really don't have to have it. But nevertheless, I understand what the doctor's saying. So since then, I've taken what they call a full body scan to make sure it's not in the bones. I will be visiting him in a couple of days to see what the plans that he have. But it does make you rethink your whole situation, both as a father. You got to review things. What didn't do that I might need to do? As a pastor, you start thinking about, how long is the road ahead of you? And those type of things. Should I go here? Should I go there? And it's funny that we were getting ready to kind of start visiting the wife's side of the family this year. We haven't seen Tommy in a long time. She got some nephews from my oldest brother who calls me aunt. They call me. They don't hardly call me aunt. They call me. Matter of fact, one of them passed, and they're having this eulogy today. I didn't get a chance to call them because I had one to do today, but they called me, and so we were planning on going to New Bern in that area. So you think about those things. You think about how far the road. Did some research, and as always, I'm going to do the research, and some say, and I got several friends who are in the same situation. One of the doctors, not my particular doctor, put it this way. He said, prostate cancer, and that's why I encourage men to take it early, because we didn't have symptoms, and once you have a symptom, probably it's maybe, I know it's a little late in this stage, but he said, you don't die from prostate cancer, you die with it. And so what he was trying to say is treatable, but if you don't treat it, you will die from it. So he said the people who die, they die with it and not from it. And so, just some of my friends are doing different things, and I think some of it is in the hands of the doctor or the oncologist, because there'll be radiation treatment is the common treatment. And so just doing the research, talking to my family doctor and my urologist, and now I'll have an oncologist. So it makes you think, and so after that, and I know people who've done well, you read the different reports, some say 3 to 5, some say you can live to old age, but I know it's in God's hand. And those type of things, I'm kind of like Paul, if I die, I'll be with Christ. If I don't, it'll still be gain for the Lord. And so, you do want to see your children, grow up, and one of the things I wish, my father could have seen or been able to do, go to Africa and all of these places that I've been, was going to India this year, but we had to cancel that. Matter of fact, our missionary who was here preaching in March sent me a picture yesterday on the airplane. He's just not leaving. He was locked down in the United States because of India. So you have to rethink, and I think there's an adjustment in our lives at different stages. And we have to recognize that things change. And you got to change with it and make the adjustment.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. This has been beneficial for me and hopefully for others. What's your final word? I want you to give a final word to fathers, to families, whatever the Lord has laid upon your heart, and then we'll conclude.
Well, first of all, I want to just thank you for being in the Palm Beach areas. It's Father's Day weekend, and I appreciate that. The jury has been out for a while, and they finally made their final verdict, and so it is what it is. But to all of the fathers, children need fathers. We are influenced in their lives, and they need their fathers. We as fathers need to reach back and try to mentor other men who haven't had most of us haven't had that intentional mentoring. And I believe if every man who is understanding God and walking close with the Lord will reach back and pour their lives into another man, this world would be a better place. So many of our young men don't know their father, and they're angry, and they don't know why they're angry. They just know it's something missing out of their lives. And I would say be encouraged. We are fathers. God has made us that way. We are different from ladies by design and thought process, but we need that completion. And we need to work to make this a better place. I think best thing I can say, legacy is not what I do. Legacy is what I leave in others that continue to pass on. And we all have the ability to leave a legacy, and we ought to leave a legacy in others. And the more we can, the better the world will be. And so, Orthodox as a whole know I love you. Been 33 years. We've been through the ups and the downs. We've been in 3rd Street and Australia and all those places. But that's what God wanted. And if we stay together, we'll get to the finish line. Thank you so much, son, for loving me. Thank you for coming down. Thank you for thinking up this. And my prayers are with you in your ministry. And I know God will bless you with it.
Well, thank you. Love you, Dad. I've got a great father. Thank you for allowing us to share today. And to Orthodox and St. Mark, we want to say we love you and happy Father's Day.
Thank you, St. Mark. I love you all. Y'all treat me so well when I come up there. Those cabbages, you know what I'm talking about.